Now let's get to the first story. Don't work overtime. No problem, boss. I 20 to female work for a large retail chain in one of their smaller stores. Not a mega store, but still sizable. Each department has multiple people, manager, controller, and usually 12 minutes for floor workers. I'm one of the 2 floor workers in my section, and we can normally handle the deliveries. Floor work, restocking, and customer service. That was until January. The manager took his time off. He worked through the festive season. The controller caught the dreaded you-know-what, and the other worker also chose to take her off time. She wasn't aware of the situation. This left little me to do the work of 4 people all by myself. With no manager, the merchandisers who could have helped me acted like my section no longer existed. I ended up working overtime through January and put in around 12 extra hours to ensure the store was at the expected level of order. Except they didn't pay me for the overtime. When I asked questions, the HR manager yelled at me, told me my overtime approval ended at the end of December. And best of all, he told me that I should quit if I'm going to have such a big mouth. It was made very clear that the extra work was not appreciated, and they just saw an opportunity for free labor. This is a shortened version of what happened. The man literally had me in tears, and this was in front of customers, but that's a story for another day. Anyway, cool, time for some malicious compliance. I won't do any more overtime. Just the next month an important visit was scheduled. The big boss was coming to check on us, and we had to be perfect. Here's the catch, my deliveries come in at 6 a.m., and for p.m. most days, they should be unpacked immediately. This is a 2-hour job at a minimum. Yeah, my shift is from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., so I just stopped helping with the second delivery even if there was no one there to do it. I went home. Shelves a mess. Go home. No staff. Go home. Delivery coming in. Now go home. My manager asked me why I was no longer doing my job as I used to. I told what the HR manager said. Also told my union rep. Guess who's not allowed to talk to me without a witness present now? And to the second story, hold me back 1 year in A's over a single gym credit. How about I go to college a year early instead? I hated gym class, not because of the physical activity. I was in hockey and football. But the fact there wasn't enough time to shower before the bell. So you stink to high heaven for the rest of the day. So I would walk the track all the girls. Pissed off my coaches something awful. So they flunk me in my junior year and won't let me double up my senior year, so I would have to stay back. I had already picked out my college and was accepted to tech school. Just had to finish my senior year. So I figured I could work out something. The guidance counselor and the coach. Nope, neither would budge. Okay, I walk away thinking I'm screwed and have to basically take 1 class my second senior year. Then it dawns on me, can I just start going to college now? Are there other alternatives? So I call my college admissions and college guidance counselor. Explain my situation and what other options are available. Since this is a non-traditional college, you can start a diploma. The caveat is you must have one to get your diploma. The state I'm from, they don't distinguish between the two, so it won't be an issue later on. So I called another meeting hoping the A's admin would change their minds. No joy, they stuck to their guns. Thinking they had me cornered, I stood up and said, well, I'm just going to have to drop out then. I can't see missing a year of college to just do gym class. The coach thinks he's all cute and as you can't go to college a diploma. I relay what the tech school admin guidance told me of their policy on this. Faces dropped. It's set into the guidance counselor that a dropout looks bad on her and the school when the state audits. She starts backpedaling and I wasn't hearing any of it. Later on that night, the principal and vice principal call to talk. I wasn't interested. I was all excited about starting classes in the fall. TLDR, my A's tried to hold me back a year for 1 gym credit. I was already enrolled in a non-tradition tech college. Tech college would let me start classes as long as I got my GED prior to graduation. So I quit A's, looks bad on the school admin, and got my degree a year earlier. And to the third story, classmate is mad I'm forcing her to eat ethnic food. Go eat a loaf of bread. This happened about a year ago now when I was in high school. My calculus class was very chill. About 20 kids who were all friendly with each other. A laid-back but enthusiastic teacher. And a light enough workload that we could afford to goof off in class but still learn and do well. At some point in the year, I got really into cooking. It's my stress reliever. My family couldn't possibly eat the amount of food I was made, so I started bringing it into school. And hosting Friday parties in my calc class. With my teacher's approval, of course. Now, I'm Vietnamese and I live in a predominantly white town. This is only important because it meant that most kids from town only ate American or European foods and weren't used to eating other ethnic foods. Last year around Lunar New Year, I wanted to bring in some Vietnamese foods to celebrate. It is a very important time of year for my family. I ended up making a bunch of bánh đa lon, a steamed layer cake, and a traditional Vietnamese dessert. Some of my friends from class found out I was going to bring in a traditional dish and brought in their own traditional dishes from their own cultures. Whether they celebrated Lunar New Year or not, we had different Indian, Korean, Filipino, and Spanish desserts. It was great and I was really excited that my friends wanted to celebrate with me. Apparently, this was an issue for one girl in my class. I would say bánh đa lon is an acquired taste, so when not a lot of people ate it I wasn't offended. I knew not everybody would like it. There was a lot of other food anyways. During our lunch period, one of my friends, who wasn't in our class but knew I brought food in, overheard a girl from my class complaining about the food while on the lunch line. Apparently, she was saying really negative things about how I forced everyone to eat weird Chinese foods. Later that day I texted her just saying I heard she didn't like the food and wanted to know why. I don't really care when people don't like the food. I make it for myself and bring it in when I have extra anyways. But her calling it weird Chinese foods, when she knows I'm Vietnamese, didn't sit right with me. Well, she texted back that it was rude of me to bring in weird ethnic foods that nobody would have liked except for me and said I should know better since most of the class was white. I told her that I bring in food to share because I feel like it and that I don't have an obligation to cater to her tastes. If she has an issue with it, she literally does not have to eat it. And other people can bring in food to, so if she wanted to she could bring in something more to her tastes. After that, she just told me that I shouldn't bring in ethnic and foreign foods and stick with American foods. Because we're in America. Excuse me? Like, how much you wanna bet if I brought in jambalaya, which originated in Louisiana? She would call it a weird foreign food. Fine. Does she only want to eat American foods? Then she can eat American foods. The next week I brought in a bunch of oliebollen, a Dutch donut, and started passing them out at the beginning of class. When I got to her desk I pulled out a loaf of Wonder Bread and plopped it on her desk, saying sorry but these are Dutch, too ethnic. Here you go, all American cuisine. Later she texted me asking what my problem was. So I told her that almost every single food I brought in this year was ethnic and that it pissed me off she only had an issue when it wasn't European. She's entitled to not liking Asian foods, but if you're going to complain about it being ethnic, then you better have that same attitude when the ethnic food is white. And especially don't call another person's culture weird. She didn't complain about the food again. Also, before anyone comments, white bread isn't the only American cuisine out there. Here's a short list of what I've enjoyed making: tater tots, jambalaya, fried chicken, many types of pies, s'mores, and Philly cheesesteaks. America is a very diverse place, and that's reflected in its food. Happy eating. If you don't do the senior project, then you won't walk during graduation. Well, okay then. Back in 2013, I was a senior at a high school I had just transferred to. I had moved earlier in the year because my parent got divorced, and I made the deliberate choice to leave my old high school and move in with my dad. Attending a new high school. I won't go into much detail about the why, but it was my decision to leave my mom, my old school, and my hometown in the Bay Area, and move into a small apartment with my dad. This comes up later. Normally, switching schools isn't a huge deal, but it was sort of an abrupt move. I wasn't able to take any of the AP classes I normally would have taken because they all had mandatory summer projects that I wouldn't have been able to do in a week. Additionally, a week into the school year, we were told about this stupid senior project they wanted us to do. In a nutshell, there was some acronym like IMPACT or something, and each letter represented a value of the school. They wanted us to write about how IMPACT had influenced us in our time at the school. We were then told that, should we not do the senior project, we wouldn't be able to walk for graduation. I heard this and thought it was stupid for a number of reasons, not the least of which being that I had only just gotten there. So their dumb acronym didn't mean anything to me. I brought this concern up to the lady telling us about the project, and her response was that I just figure something out. Or don't walk. Well, okay then. I brought it up with my dad, asked if he gave a hot shit whether or not I walked for high school graduation. He did not. So I just figured that I wouldn't do the project. End of story, right? Wrong. Yeah, see, a few months into this senior project, they did a checkup on every senior. We just lined up in our homeroom to talk to some lady from the principal's office and told her how close we were to being done. When I walked up, I told her that I wasn't doing it. She was confused. You're not going to do it. You have to? It's non-negotiable. No, it's not. I don't have to do it. But you won't walk if you don't do it. Yeah, then we just sorta stared at each other, and she wrote my name down and shooed me away. I correctly assumed that this would not be the last interaction I had regarding this non-issue. Several weeks later, my suspicions were confirmed when I was pulled out of class and brought into the main office. They ushered me into the vice principal's personal office, where she made a bit of a show of pulling out some papers. She told me that the meeting was regarding a misunderstanding I may have had regarding the senior project. She was apparently told that I didn't know what to do for the assignment, and I chose to boycott the whole thing as a result. I quickly corrected her and explained that I very clearly understood what they wanted me to do, but that I thought it was stupid and wasn't going to do it. I also explained that I understood the penalty and was fine with it. She, like the First Lady, seemed confused by this course of action and just let me leave, since there wasn't really much of a conversation to be had. A few more weeks later, I get pulled out of yet another class for this same thing. Again, I'm brought up to the vice principal for a one-on-one. When I get there, she looks like the cat that ate the canary. She begins, "So, I know you were in here a while ago, and you said you didn't want to do your senior project." No, I interrupted. I said I wasn't doing the project. Well, she continued, "We had a chat with your mother over the phone earlier this week. She told us that she really wants you to walk on your graduation." I was quiet for a moment. I live with my dad. Right, but your mom said she'd like to attend the ceremony and see you walk. I don't think you get it, I stated. I live with my dad for a reason. If ever there were an expression that perfectly exemplified the dial-up tone, that's the face she made. After she collected herself, I was released and headed back to class. By this point, I was mostly just not doing the project because it was dumb. But them calling a family member to strong-arm me was crossing a line. On top of that, they tried to strong-arm me using a parent with whom I was no contact. I decided right then that, no matter what, I wasn't caving into their bullshit. Fuck the project, fuck the school, fuck the weird tactics they were trying to use. Though in my anger was also confusion. Why the hell did these people care so damn much about one guy not doing an optional assignment? Also, I made myself very clear, so was that the end of it. Spoiler, it wasn't. A few more weeks later, I got pulled into the actual principal's office. The principal, for reference, was one of those guys that tried to make a show of being overly friendly and goofy, but to the point where it came off as superficial. When I got to his office, he was his usual extroverted self, greeted me, and Saturdayed me down. "So, I've heard about this whole senior project problem you've had going on, and I get it. Trust me, I really do. You're new here, so our motto hasn't had as much of an impression. So, after talking about it with the folks grading the projects, we think it'd be just fine if you had a modified project. Just do a project on one letter of impact, and you're golden." He gave me a big warm smile. "No, sorry?" he asked, still smiling. "I'm not doing it." His smile was slowly fading. "But you only have to do one letter. It's really not that much." "Yeah, I got that. I'm still not going to do it," I stated. "But you won't be able to walk on graduation day." "Yep. So what's the issue, exactly?" "You called my mom." His mouth was open like he was going to say something, but I guess nothing came to mind. As we sat there in silence for a good 20 seconds, him trying to formulate an argument, and me making a Jim Halpert face, I told him if that was everything he needed to talk about, I would be heading back to class. He didn't protest, so I just left. It was after this meeting that I eventually got some context. Apparently, California schools will shuffle principals around every few years for some reason that probably makes sense. But I don't care enough to research. Our principal was going to be switching schools after the 2013 semester had ended. And one of his big plans was to leave that high school with 100% participation in the senior projects that would otherwise not affect any final grade. He used the threat of preventing students from walking at graduation to bully everyone into doing the dumb project. Almost everyone, I stuck to my guns and refused to do it. And sure enough, after the deadline had passed, they made a big deal about how happy they were that 99.6% of students completed their senior projects, even though they were hoping for 100%. And the absolute dumbest part about this exercise in stupid, after everything was said and done, I was called in one last time to the VP's office. She told me that despite my refusal to do the senior project, they were still going to let me walk, and gave me 5 tickets for friends and family. I laughed, walked out without the tickets, and didn't attend my own graduation. TLDR, I was given the choice of option A or option B. I chose option B. The admins regretted giving me the option. And then it got personal. That's it for the story. Thanks for watching.